All of you. Greetings from 90-degree Boston here. A little toasty today. But thank you all for joining this call today. So we thought as something different we would have, it might be interesting for someone from the portfolio to actually speak and share their trends and kind of everything. Sorry, that was Ashley. So Mike Ward from Workfront is joining us. So Mike, I'll give the floor to you to kind of kick it off and take it away and go from there.
Okay, that sounds great. And you're seeing my screen and you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everybody, and good morning for those on the West Coast. Excited to be with you today. I've been asked to kind of facilitate a discussion around marketing technology trends. I spent a good chunk of the last month at conferences. I went to the Marketo conference. We use Marketo as our marketing automation platform, and I went to Martech. May be interesting, actually, before we get too far in a minute, I may ask if anybody also went to Martech. There's some interesting things that come out of that. I'll admit that I'm not an expert in all of the tools, although we use a lot of great marketing technology tools. So I figured we'd start by talking about some of the overarching trends that came out of the Martech conference, and really hopefully spur a conversation that will allow us to share best practices and things that you're doing to tackle marketing technology at your companies. It looks like we're getting a few people on. Just for the sake of for everybody's knowledge, and maybe you guys know each other already, but I don't. I'd love to just, and I'll start this, but just want to do quick introductions around the horn of who you are, where your company you're from, briefly of what your company does, the role you have and how long you've been in there, and maybe a high level of kind of your pedigree, where you came from in previous lives. And that'll just really hopefully set the stage for get to know each other a little bit better, and then as we go forward, feel free to jump in, ask questions, pose different things to the group, and hopefully we can kind of learn together and glean from knowledge from each other. So once again, my name is Mike Ward. I'm the Vice President of Demand Gen at Workfront. Workfront formerly used to be known as @Task. We changed our name 2 years ago. So if that rings a bell, we're a work management solution. We help enterprise companies, mostly in marketing and also IT. We say we tame the chaos of work. We help people keep track of the work that they're working on, be able to provide visibility to those around them, and really build a flow so that the team can do their work more effectively. I've been in the role now for just over 2 years, and previous to this, I was for about a year, I was at Pluralsight, which is a tech company here in Utah. I spent 3 years at Adobe, and then 6 years before that at Ancestry.com. So that just gives a brief introduction into me. I may just go down the line here with the people in the participant list. I think Lori joined first. Lori, do you mind just giving a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Sylvia. I'm the CMO here at Smashfly, and we provide a recruitment marketing platform for enterprise customers. A recruitment marketing platform is very similar to marketing automation, but it's for recruiters. And I've been here for just over 2.5 years, and have worked at several other startups. So I guess this is my 5th startup.
Wow, that's great. Perfect, thank you. Mario, I think you were next on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, using mute technology correctly. My name is Mario. I am based in San Francisco, California. I work for a OpenView portfolio company named SwiftStack. We make super geeky stuff for about 1,000 companies on the planet that have a profile like a cloud operator. So kind of different from a lot of the other portfolio companies in terms of being super targeted, ABM style thing. Plus, from a tools perspective, we keep it lean, given that we don't necessarily need to get to 300,000 individuals. When if we get to the right 3,000, we're totally doing awesome. So, yeah, I've been here for going on 4 years.
Okay, great, thanks. Matt, are you on the line?
Yeah, hi, this is Matt Stodolnik. I look after marketing at Pantheon. We are a website management platform. We run about 150,000 websites, all Drupal and WordPress websites. Our sweet spot is in the tech world. We run lots of technology websites that want to be able to build sites quickly, launch campaigns quickly, run events. We run desk.com, docker.com. We also run really important websites like the ACLU that takes $20 million in a weekend in transactions and can't go down. Otherwise, they lose that money to put to good work. We're based in San Francisco. I've been here 2.5 years, and we are primarily focused on marketing to developers.
Okay, great, thanks. Ron.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So my name is Ron. I'm based in Israel. I'm in New York City right now, but I'm based out of Israel. I work for Scalar. We're a cloud management platform geared specifically at the large enterprise Fortune 500 companies mainly. So what we do essentially is we help reconcile between all the different enterprise groups that have to do with delivering cloud services in an enterprise. So between the finance folks and security folks, IT folks, and the actual developers and all the end users that have to consume cloud. One of the challenges is actually being able to simplify what we do and being able to explain that. So I've been with Scalar for just under 2 years, and my background is actually more technical. Started out as a QA engineer and went into product design, and then switched over to Scalar, where I now run marketing. My title has to stay product marketing manager for the time being for visa purposes. But yeah, that's me.
Got it. Thanks. Sky. Sky,
Yep. I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep. So I run demand generation at VTS. VTS is basically a cloud-based leasing and asset management platform for commercial real estate. So we basically enable landlords and brokers to take kind of all the kind of commercial property that they're managing and really take it, kind of from Excel, into the cloud and online so that the data is usable and accessible in real time. We track over, 6 billion square feet today, and we're pretty fast growing. I've been at VTS for just about a year now. Before that, worked at a company called Chartbeat, a New York-based startup, and before that, Box in San Francisco.
Perfect. Let's see, who have I not hit? Is there anybody on the call? I know I've got a couple of the folks from OpenView. You're welcome to introduce yourselves. And anybody that I've missed otherwise?
I'll quickly chime in. This is Ashley from OpenView. I know almost all of you on the call, but just in case I don't, I sit on the expansion team, so the team that gets to partner with you all post-investment, which is great to work with you all. I end up doing a lot of work related to more like customer and marketing insights, as well as optimizing just general marketing strategies. So nice to meet you if I haven't met you before. And Mike, I'm excited for you to kick this off.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. It's good to kind of get a sense for where people are coming from and got a great wide range of industries that you're selling into and sizes of companies. And so I think this will be an interesting discussion. I've put together a handful of slides. Please interrupt me along the way or ask questions. And then I've got just an open forum, I think, really of conversations that we can have. Just curious, would anybody on the call go to the MarTech conference last week in San Francisco?
It was Matt from Pantheon. I went and we presented at the event.
Oh, terrific. I saw your booth there. That's great. Anybody else? Okay. Then Matt, feel free. Any of you who've seen these things, feel free to chime in. I'm assuming all of you are generally familiar with Scott Brinker and his marketing landscape slides that he puts together. It's been interesting to watch over the course of the last several years. When he started that, I was at Adobe, and at the time there were about 150 pieces of technology that companies could use for their marketing stack. I mean, companies and the big buckets were search ad management, and the Marins and Kenshus, social media ad management, and analytics. For me, I came over just after the Omniture acquisition of Adobe, and so I was part of the Omniture business unit until they rebranded to Adobe. But it really was, it seemed like a lot at the time, but as you could see over the last 5 years, 6 years, it's grown pretty substantially. 350, 100, 1,000, 2,000 by 15. Last year they announced 3,500, and then he brought up this slide, and this is what it looks like today. So there are now what he refers to as the MarTech 5,000. There are 5,000 different technologies that marketing that could help you in your marketing efforts. And I think my first response to that was, holy crap, stop the madness. There are just so many things out there that companies are trying to tackle specific problems for. And as I dug in a little bit and as I read more about kind of Scott's perspectives and I've listened to him at the keynote, he talked about how a lot of companies, they're coming at this from not really trying to replace a Salesforce or be the next Marketo, but they're seeing that there are those big players that are platforms, and they see themselves as the wanting to add something to the ecosystem. And whether it's providing better ways to analyze data or providing a predictive model to it, or to do ABM better, or helping pull content together in a way to use it, it's really about bringing those points. There's so many point solutions that are trying to come to the mainstream to leverage with those core products. Couple of things that he threw out. He talked about just under 7% of all of the companies on this list are enterprises with more than 1,000 employees. 44% of them are private businesses with less than 1,000 employees or that don't have any funding data. And about half of them, 48%, are investor-funded startups at any pre-exit stage. And I thought that was interesting, just the mix of the various companies there. And I think several of us fall into those categories. I mean, we would, I guess, consider ourselves a longer term startup. We've been in market now for about 14 years, but we're playing along with inside a few of these spaces in projects and workflow and collaboration. I think so a couple of the other things that he talked about. He talked about the difference between suite or best of breed, and I mean I think the perspective was, I think it's becoming an and, it's not an or. I think we're finding that, and we're finding this for ourselves as we build our stack, that we're going after suites where possible in the big areas, but then we're looking for the point solutions that are going to help us solve those problems. And for me, it's really about how those pieces integrate into my bigger stack, and what it does for me to help me run my business better and help me tie back to our customers. I guess my first question I'd love to throw out, if for people that have feedback, any other thoughts, feedback on the evolving MarTech space over the last few years? I know Pantheon and several of you are kind of in the marketing technology space yourselves, but would be interested to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, this is Matt from Pantheon. I just echo what you said. I think it's messy. It's huge. There's now, I think, about 20 companies that do any one feature that used to be considered just part of a marketing solution. There's more and more of the full solutions, I think, are being broken down into individual features, so your stack gets monstrous. And it's tougher to make decisions around, it sometimes can be daunting to try to map a technology solution to a goal or a pain that you have.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how other people are approaching building their marketing stack. And one of the questions I asked in the email was, how do you keep from getting shiny object syndrome, and how do you make sure that each piece you bring in is going to have the best effect possible? How do you guys approach that for anybody on the call?
I'll take it, Matt.
Go ahead.
Our first approach is we build it. If we can't, when there's something that we need to do, like where we are talking right now about the value of Uberflip. There's so many companies that use Uberflip, and what we're looking at now is we have 6 personas that we connect with, and we have a lot of content that we've produced over many years. And my approach right now is to build 6 unique pages with with a very simple way to vary content based on a cookie attribute, and we're just going to do that on our website with a developer, and we'll probably have it from start to finish be done in 3 to 6 weeks, and not necessarily full time, and it will be, I think, easier to manage than buying a net new technology that would take as long or longer to implement, and I question how much additional value gets created by implementing sort of the point solutions.
In the content management space.
Well, in content management space, that would be one example, or we're also doing fulfillment for like specialty fulfillment. We work with a lot of agencies, and when an agency does their first project with us, as an example, first paid project, we send them a welcome gift. There's dozens of sites, dozens of companies that integrate with Marketo or Salesforce that will automate the fulfillment. And for us, just hiring an Upwork contractor to come in 2 days a week and fill up boxes with the stuff we need and print out mailing labels is just a simpler, faster way to solve the problem than to look for and implement a technology that then needs to be maintained over time.
That's interesting. That's a great point. Any other thoughts?
One of the thoughts I have,
remind me who this is.
Oh, this is Mario Blandini. Blandini. Like some of the other folks here, we have strong developer chops since we are doing hardcore development for cloud data centers. We could literally do anything we wanted. But the reality is that for our business, we just don't need a lot of the stuff that you can't otherwise get from Marketo and Salesforce if implemented properly. And for me, gosh, it's easy to not have shiny object syndrome because not a day goes by, given how many of these MarTech startups are funded by VCs, that an SDR from one of these companies isn't just absolutely blowing me up on my cell phone and on my inbox.
Yeah.
And what I tell them is, hey, it's not you, it's me. We're a 60-person company. You're literally not going to sell me anything that you guys sell. You're just not. But so much of my day goes into just reading so many of these emails, and then just, of course, because they're trying to be like OpenView teaches companies, voracious about making contact with the right buyers. I'm the VP of marketing. I am the right buyer for this. It's just to me, the market is oversaturated. There's way too many companies with a small bit of the technology that you just don't have time to even evaluate any of it because we don't have a pressing need. Yes, we could probably do something better with data, but we just don't have the pressing need given our population and our B2B audience go to market. Whereas a lot of the stuff Just to me, I think that I can't wait until there's some consolidation here. Companies either go out of business or they consolidate, because the reality is just with this type of fragmentation, just the sheer noise of all the SDRs that exist to push these products, makes a marketing person's job unproductive.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even just this week, I had a vendor that we were reasonably far along with, looking at some of the things that they provided, who emailed us and said, our VCs just decided to shut our doors. So they actually they no longer sell their products. They don't actually exist anymore. I thought that was interesting and kind of indicative of even just what I saw with 5,000 vendors. At some point, they're either going to make it or they're going to consolidate. And the consolidation is going to be much better for the individual marketing company or VP to be able to figure out and keep track of them. It is, by the way, interesting that both of you feel like you've got strong developer chops and can do those things for you. I can tell you that I don't feel like I'm in the same boat, and that's a skill set that I want to develop on our team. Is to feel like we could go build those things ourselves and not need to necessarily go buy a tool to make that happen. So that's an area that we definitely need to improve on.
Yeah, and to add on to that, given our offering is a SaaS-based offering that interacts with the user via a web page, a lot of the user experience stuff that we put in there can be more easily optimized for exactly how our buyer behaves and how they interact, versus having to force them onto some sort of other behavior interaction that's kind of bound by how the plugin or how the add-on to Salesforce or add-on to Marketo works. Because we could just inject data because we understand the context of what's going on in the behavior better than some third-party tool would. I think it's just because of our business is really more weird. If it was doing something more common, I could see buying a tool might be easier. But for us, we just implemented a configure to quote system, and what we found was that, good Lord, it's just super, super, super costly and time intensive and requires massive customization. I'm not saying that the company we're working with isn't a good company, but they're a startup in Israel, so they have limited resources to be able to give us a really, really great experience. And we're almost thinking, shoot, if we do 100 transactions a year, we could have just manually done the paperwork on all these rather than trying to automate everything, right? So for our business, it's one of those things that, hey, one of the things you need to realize is what problem you're trying to solve. You're trying to solve a problem that's in the 100 scale. Like the Upworker idea could be way cheaper and easier than trying to integrate a technology to do it.
That's interesting. That's a good point. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, this is Lori from Smashfly. I was wondering the point made about the SDRs. I mean, I'm saturated with that as well, and I wonder, has anyone looked at this from the perspective of like the sales cycle lengthening for the MarTech firms, because there's so much, to your point, like there's so many companies here that go very deep on one very fine point of marketing technology, and then it creates, we find something happens in HR technology, that they're not confident in making buying decisions, and their comfort level with technology is relatively low. And I would say, like in marketing, I think our comfort level with technology is relatively high, yet there's so much noise. So maybe marketers are getting less confident to know that they're making the right decision. And I just wonder if anybody knows if the buying cycle has lengthened at all, because there's 5,000 different companies to consider.
Anybody have thoughts on that? I can tell you from our perspective. So we sell to marketers. We also sell to IT and other parts of the business. And we are I don't know about the sales cycle lengthening per se, but I can tell you it is definitely very difficult to sell into marketing organizations without the crisp and very specific message that cuts through the clutter. I mean, at the end of the day, I sign up for every website, newsletter, and email list and get on every SDRs possible, primarily because I own the SDRs in my organization, and I learn from how they interact with me, and I just more often than not, I'll get a message that I can tell took them less than 2 minutes to address, and they don't understand me and they don't understand my business. And I think that's, there's hyper focus on trying to get deals in, and I think there's training involved, and I don't want to change the topic, but we're constantly trying to figure out how do we cut through the clutter and all the different things that a marketer, that a marketing executive could be paying attention to. Anybody else got any other thoughts around kind of the sales cycle potentially lengthening? I think it's a good question, though. Any other thoughts or feedback?
Actually, I do have a thought there. I think that given the specialization of a lot of these technologies, I think that because it's a smaller set of, there's almost like this idea of going to do something boutique that's very specific, that could show very specific value, which is why you're not seeing more inclusive solutions. Then with people going the kind of ecosystem route versus the big companies trying to build their own stuff. You've got a situation where I think people specifically make very targeted products in order to keep the sales cycle as short as possible. Because the more things something does, the more people that need to be involved in the decision, the longer the sales cycle. So we've got this weird conundrum where you have to invest time in evaluating a technology that does very little, and because the company really wants to be as successful as fast as possible, so the VCs don't pull funding, right? So you've got this weird dynamic, kind of going on. I don't see the sales cycles lengthening per se. I think that people are, of all the 5,000 that are on the sheet, most of them are probably fairly lightweight products to start. They're not huge, mature things the size of a Salesforce or a Marketo. Because
yeah, no, I totally agree. In fact, if you were to go back to the slides from, I'll back up. If you just go back to the slides in 2011, if you were to just take that list, or at least the version of that list, my guess is you could boil down the handful, the 50 or less that actually are platforms that do a lot more things. They're just everything else are very small and do very, very niche, solving problem, very small niche problems.
Yeah.
The other trend, hey Mike, the other trend that I would add, which maybe is obvious, is just the importance of integrations. Like working with Deputy, this definitely rang true. So Deputy, I don't think they're actually on the line, but they are essentially a workforce and time scheduling system for people who have like cafes or restaurants, etc. And we did research with their customer base and prospects, and what was so obvious coming out of that was like their integration component was such a key value prop. They integrate with about 50 other solutions. So as this landscape just becomes more and more fragmented, the ability to integrate with the ones that matter most are very important for businesses like that.
No, that's a great point. We're running into a couple of those where a rogue marketer purchased a tool, and then we get into integrated. So my team also has marketing operations in it, but it's not fully inclusive of marketing. And we bought a tool recently only to realize that it actually doesn't integrate with Salesforce. And so now we're trying to figure out, they're trying to figure out what to do next. So you've got to have a checklist and know what it is you're buying and how to connect it to the systems that you already plan to be using. All right, let's hop down. So if you are familiar with MarTech, something Scott started a couple of years ago was something called the Stacky Awards, where companies submit their marketing technology stacks, and then they rank them based off of alignment, how well aligned is your stack with your business, the concept, how insightful is the conceptual organization of your stack, clarity, how easy is it for a reader to understand your stack, the design, how the aesthetics of your slide, and visual appeal, which if you'll see a few of these, you'll realize that that's where a lot of people spend their time. And the detail, he talks about how more detail is generally better, but it's within reason because they do want it on a single slide. There were 57 marketing stacks that were submitted, and we actually submitted ours. We got thanks for playing on ours, but I figured I would take just a couple of minutes and show a few examples, and if people have thoughts on any of these or any of them spring up as being more interesting than others, we can stop and talk about those. These are the 6 that won the stackies, and I've got I've got full slides on each of these, but you have Alocadia, Primo, both of which are relatively small companies. Cisco's obviously gigantic, and Informatica, Microsoft I think is the biggest of all of them, and Red Wing Shoes. It was interesting to me to start getting a sense for, and once again, Mario and Matt talk about how their first approach is to build it for a lot of companies who maybe don't have that development mindset and the ability and the thought process to do it themselves. They end up buying various pieces. So this is the Alocadia marketing technology stack. They've got just under 100 employees, to put that in context. If you haven't seen them yet, their pitch is around running marketing. They talk about planning, investing, measuring, and so their stack really starts with themselves and then moves to the retain, acquire, and attract, which they really fundamentally talk about their Marketo instance. But you can see all around their stack, they've got their areas of the acquisition through Salesforce and some of the tools there, some Engagio, which is our ABM. They've got their digital advertising, their social, and content creation and data acquisition. They're measuring results in a few different places. And then back again to as I went all the way around to the planning of using Asana and Slack. I need to stop moving my mouse. And some of their other areas. It was interesting. I think the points that they made were that it was great to see marketing connected with sales and finance through their stack and intertwining the heart of their own product and in the run and Marketo in the do. And happy to talk through these, or happy to just kind of barrel through if you guys have preferences. We've got about probably 15 minutes left, but just want to give you a taste of this, and I can send these all out, and we can have a conversation off Slack or something else if that's interesting. Primo takes a different approach. They looked at it from 2 dimensions: the continuous loop of plan, spend, create, distribute, and perform, as well as the concentric circles of how they talk about their capabilities of marketing operations, content, website, social, demand gen, data, and sales enablement.
Telemetry.
What's that?
Plastics in the driveway. That's our path.
Are you okay?
Accountability.
I'm not sure if somebody need on mute or need to be on mute. All right. Really quickly, the Cisco one, both Cisco and Microsoft, I think, given the size of their companies, were actually highlighted in specific articles that were written up on them. Really, this is fascinating for me to see how a really large company tracks and rationalizes their marketing stack around I'm aware, I shop and I buy, I install and I use, and I renew, and the tools that they use in each of those to help them accomplish that in the customer, the partner, the seller, and then they've got a data and ops area as well, and keeping track of all of those pieces. There are, just as a reference point, for Cisco, there are 39 technologies that sit across the stack. Informatica had 2, and I'm not 100% sure why, but this is the one that they focused on. They did it as a flow diagram. They made it all connecting into a common data lake, but they also make it very customer-centric, and they've got a 10-step narrative at the bottom that talks about their data flow that is written entirely from the perspective of the customer, which I thought was interesting. This is the Microsoft's tech stack that organizes around the buyer's journey as well as a continuous loop between marketing, sales, and post-sales. But they also had the bands of technologies based on Gartner's pace layering model of systems of record, systems of differentiation, and systems of innovation. And the Red Wing one was an interesting one. The non-tech company who submitted and won one of the awards, with a company that's about 1,000 employees. It looks much like a consumer brand. Most of the others are tech brands and take many cases more of a B2B approach. This was more of a B2C in how they arranged their stack in showing technologies that interface at different stages, and showing the journey of reach, engagement, conversion, and retention, along with a feedback loop. Just really quickly, I thought it was fascinating. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but some of the stacking examples that they use as metaphors. You've got the hamburger from Curata. You've got the spaceship from Visible. You've got the tree from a company called Martecking. I always struggle with that one, the name. You've got a company called STS Education that made theirs out of they're a school. They do software for schools or for education, and they did those as raindrops at the school site or at the schoolyard. The University of Technology in Mexico did theirs actually as an engine, and how those pieces all fit together and who, what, and how. And then Socito, which I believe it's kind of in the social space, and they did theirs as a land of the stack with a map underneath and their own data lake and how the pieces all fit together. And then last is Beiersdorf, who took it at like a city. Be curious, and I could scroll back to any of them. Any thoughts or feedback or things that you caught along the way about how people are arranging their stacks? And I know you maybe haven't spent a lot of time specifically looking at them, but I'd be curious, perspectives on a few of those areas that we just looked at. And anything you learned, anything you would consider doing the same or differently or anything like that. Crickets. Nothing? Okay.
I'll chime in. This is Ashley. I actually thought the first one, the run marketing versus do marketing, is a really interesting framework, because I feel like everyone is so focused on how to use the best technologies to go after their customers. But such an important part of that is how your team can effectively do that. So I liked how it was almost like an equal emphasis on both, and probably an important framework to be mindful of. So that I even myself don't even really think about the run your marketing component. So I thought that was really interesting.
No, I think that's a great point. Allocadia is doing some really great things, and I like the way that they've looked at this. One of the areas that we're focusing on right now, and we ended up going, we looked at Allocadia for some of their planning and budgeting and investments, ended up going a different direction. But just the idea of having better visibility into your planning and your investing,
right,
and systems that can help you lead to, are you making the right decisions, and how are you budgeting, and then moving into the actual tactical, how do you actually accomplish your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Okay, let me jump in. I'll just show you ours. For Matt and Mario, we do not, as I mentioned before, we don't build as much as we buy, and I think that's a muscle that we want to build, and we want to work on. But we look at ours in kind of 6 main buckets of acquisition, engagement, data management, operations, analytics and optimization, and then really our core systems. And obviously, I could spend a lot of time on any individual tools that we use for cleaning up our data, or for how we collaborate, or for what we use to run content. And we do use Matt. We do use Uberflip, and part of that is because we were looking for a mechanism to get out from under a very basically a legacy website issues we were facing with how they ended up implementing WordPress. And we are in the process of rebuilding, but in the meantime, we needed a better, easier mechanism for us to put content on our site and develop it for our resources and our blog that could be quickly picked up by Google, and that could be easy for our marketers to be able to add with a CMS on top of it, because the CMS we have, which is WordPress, has been so, for lack of a better term, bastardized that it now takes a role to be able to do anything. And so when we had a press release with a misspelling on it, it took until the next day's 5 o'clock roll to get it corrected. And those are the things that I think we need to work through and improve on internally. But in the meantime, some of those tools like Uberflip has actually been pretty helpful for us at solving some of our pains that we had. Any questions or thoughts about either specific technologies that we're using, or how you see marketing technology stacks compared to what our stack compared to your stack? Be curious to get kind of compare and contrast or thoughts around that. Anybody?
This is Sky. Something that, a little kind of a side topic, but something that we're struggling with a little bit is how we factor in kind of customer marketing and customer communications into the kind of overall MarTech stack. So, support team really wanting to communicate with customers like via intercom, and then we have Pendo. So even though we're not kind of owning those kind of communication systems, they still need to integrate and kind of talk with everything else that we're doing. And so we're having a little bit of a hard time kind of wrangling in those requests or those types of purchases. So I guess I'm just kind of curious how you guys might be handling that, and how you work with teams that might be communicating with customers, but really from not like a demand standpoint.
Anybody have thoughts on that?
This is Mitch from Lessonly. Chat is actually really, really important for our business, and we get a lot of the opportunities we create actually come from chat. And I guess the best thing that we've done is just to stay in close communication with the folks who are running it. And so we have kind of two separate groups there. One is our inbound SDRs, and they're who we work with most on that. And then we also have our support person as well. But on the inbound side, really the best thing for us are the triggered responses. So based on the URL that someone is on, and we use intercom. So based on the URL someone is on, we trigger an automatic response that says, let's say they're on the features page. We say, hey, would you like to check out our features more in depth? And then we can plug that, would you like a demo? And so we have 3 or 4 or 5 core pre-populated questions that we've worked with those inbound SDRs on crafting. And then because that's so specific and that's where the majority of the chats come from, we can coach them on, for this chat specifically, here's what you should be saying.
So, Guy, let me see if I'm going to ask a follow-up question to your question. You're talking about how do you factor them in from the standpoint of you get different parts of your organization who are also buying or using technologies that may not fit into the marketing stack necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, they could or they couldn't, but I think the kind of in a situation it's not really being done today in partnership. So I'm kind of more asking, so for example, like our purchase of Intercom was really driven by kind of our account management team, and we kind of heard about it after the fact, which is great. Obviously, being able to implement some of the things like chat, right, are definitely no-brainers, but it's, I guess it's like, should we kind of be taking on the responsibility to kind of help buy that software, make sure that we're involved up front, because it just feels really disconnected today, and it obviously a little bit different than other places that I've been. So I was just thinking, how are other people doing it? Are they kind of keeping them separate? And that's okay. But it sounds like, in some cases the integration part is working well. So probably where we're moving forward to. It just kind of came up yesterday and we're like, oh, surprise, that's wonderful, but we didn't know, and we should. So yeah, it's more about other people in the company buying, software to communicate with customers or non-customers, and us not really owning that process, and kind of just how people are tackling that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, here at SwiftStack, we've been an OLARC user for a long time, and from a support perspective, OLARC integrates with Zendesk and it integrates with Marketo. So we've just kind of plugged those in to those major systems. We haven't tried to use a chat from one of those other ones. It's like $19 a month. It's super cheap, and it's something that we like because it's lighter weight than some of the other things like LivePerson and some of the other chat things. So, and agreeing with one of the last comments that was made, we do get a decent amount of inbound on live chat, and we actually, our business is a little bit different. Our SDR is less of a new college grad with a finance or a business degree and more of a technical person that better matches the persona of the person on the other end of the chat. So we have a technical audience. They can ask technical questions on live chat and actually get real lifetime answers. And we found that just by matching somebody with a good persona on the other side, it has less to do with the tools. The fact the tool exists isn't the reason it's successful. It's the fact that we have people with smarter, better answers, or to the point we can inject smarter, better responses based on behaviors. We don't do as much of it as maybe some other folks do, but enough to make it, easier on the people staffing the chat. And what's cool about it is because it's integrated with Marketo, it can go there and automatically inject a stage 0 opportunity into Salesforce and put all of the comments from from the chat into Salesforce. So as we want to then say, hey, set up a next meeting, they're setting up the next meeting directly in Salesforce as a sales accepted lead, which takes a lot of the busy work out of otherwise ripping stuff out of chat and putting it into Salesforce.
Sure.
Got it.
That's great. Sky, this is Mike. I mean, from my perspective, we face a very similar issue of there are so many technologies out there that can help solve various teams' problems. How do you wrangle them all in? How do you make sure that you're aware of what's going on? And I'll give you an example. So we're getting to the size of the company now. We're about 700 employees. We're building out and we're taking a new stab at our partner channels, and so there's some big things going on that we're trying to accomplish. And the partner team has an executive who's on the executive leadership team along with the CMO, and they needed to have something done. They needed a partner portal through Salesforce to be done on the site. Well, our teams are not as connected as they need to be, and so our partner team went and hired a third party to add the partner portal on Salesforce, and over the course of 4 weeks, broke our lead process 3 times. And each time was somewhere between 2 and 8 hours to fix it. And so I think, and that was just the nature of so much technology, so much need out there, and really bringing that together and being able to have one cohesive way to look at technology. And at least for us, we've been talking about a model that some other tech companies are starting to implement around, and smaller companies probably don't have this problem, and larger companies probably don't have this problem. But in the middle where we are, we run into this where we need some governance. We need a body of partner and sales ops and marketing ops and customer success ops to be able to meet together and then make sure that they're not going to break stuff. And the long term, the model that I think we'd like to move towards, and I'm kind of pitching towards, is actually move all of that ops into a revenue ops type function, where there's one organization who has roles for fulfilling technology for customer success, marketing, sales, and partner, but that they can have a holistic look at the technology we have on the site, or that we have and that we need to have, so that we can all keep in the loop and that we don't break stuff and that we don't find out about something after they launched it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good approach. So thank you.
We have, and I promise I want to let you out maybe 3 minutes early, so that we got about 3 minutes. Any other thoughts or feedback on this conversation on your marketing technology stack? There's one set of questions that we got from. I'm going to skip through a couple things here. There are a couple of questions we got from Liam from Deputy. He's based in Australia, and so he wasn't able to join us, but he was hoping to listen to the recording. And these were the 2 questions he asked. These were for, if you're focused more in demand gen like myself, may not be able to answer as well, but for those of you who are more broad and have a wider responsibility across kind of PR and corporate channels and brand channels, he asked the question of any advice around content distribution platforms or strategies like Outbrain or Taboola, or are relationships with publishers and PR still the best bet? Anybody have a take on that we could provide back in this recording for Liam, and things that you've done? Are any of you using things like Outbrain or Taboola, or Medium, which is the content offsite, kind of how you post things and kind of get it out there in the sphere? Anybody have experience?
Hey, Ron from Scalar here. So I don't have any feedback about Outbrain or Taboola, although I am looking into some of the content distribution and syndication platforms now. But about we did for a while consider moving our blog off to Medium because there was a little while where that seemed like the cool thing to do, and all the cool kids are doing it, so let's do that too. But I would actually advise against it, because you're basically, there's nothing wrong with also having like a Medium publication and curating your more kind of thought leadership type of blog posts there, and definitely putting all of that there as well as on your website and on your blog. But we found that, having the blog exclusively on Medium will actually hurt like SEO, and it's very hard to have, calls to action, or to have, any interesting control or interesting insight into the metrics of who goes on there, what do they do, what type of people make them go on to like other parts of your website. So it definitely looks cool, but you're giving up a lot of control, and you're giving up a lot of the reasons that you have the blog in place in the first place. So my advice there would be to have your blog, like we personally have our blog on Uberflip as well, which we're still kind of in the testing phase with. but have the blog on your website or on something that you can control and heavily analyze and build workflows around, like what do you want people to do once they read a blog post, and then have your more top of the funnel thought leadership, kind of like the blog posts that your CEO writes and that kind of stuff. Put that on anything that you think is very shareable, put that on your Medium publication as well, and maybe try to get other publications to pick it up as well.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the other piece that we have started doing quite a bit of from a social perspective is we have the posts sitting in our blog, but we're using SlideShare more, and it broadens the reach. But you're right, there is a risk of not getting that SEO or that organic traffic back if you post too much in third-party spaces. Perfect. Thanks everybody for your participation today. I hope this has been helpful. I will send out a PDF of the marketing technology stacks that we looked at. This was my first time doing anything like this, so hopefully you found it valuable, or Ashley and Casey won't ask me to do it again. But this was a lot of fun, and I hope to look forward to one of you presenting in another time, and look forward to the next call.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll pass it back to Casey or Ashley to finish up.
Yes, thank you so much, Mike. This was great. It seems like we probably could have used another hour, so lots more discussion probably to follow. The one thing I'll add, I know Mike's going to send out the slides, but feel free, everyone should be invited to the community Slack channel, so that should be a great place if you have other questions on this topic or just other questions that are, relevant for all of the marketing leaders. So feel free to use it as you see fit. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
So enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.